Now, we'll begin the first panel discussion on the future of mobility. I'll introduce the moderator and panelists as they come up on the stage. Mr. Chong, Head of Future Business at SK Innovation. He'll be the moderator of this session. And Mr. Tony Ni, co-founder and CEO of Faraday Future. Mr. Weng, Executive Director of APAC at Velodyne LiDAR. Mr. Boaz Mamo, co-founder and CEO of Drive. Mr. Ludovic Centonze, Business Development Director at Orange Fab. Last but not the least, Mr. Byung-joo Kim, R&D and Business Development Director at Mando.
Okay. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to facilitate this great session. We can start by each of us kind of briefly going over the background, your R&R in your specific company, and go from there. Maybe we can start with Tony.
Okay. My name is Tony Nie, co-founder of Faraday Future, a new EV startup from California. Actually, we found this company 4 years ago, and this company is focused on produce next generation of the electric vehicle. Also, we integrate lots of new technology, including connectivities and the next generation of the infotainment system into the car, and also the new powertrain, EV powertrain system into the car. So hopefully you will see the car on the road very soon. And currently, the Faraday Future is still working on the first production car. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Weng. I'm from Velodyne LiDAR. As you may all know, Velodyne so far is the best LiDAR supplier for the world. Our LiDAR is on a lot of new start EV autonomous driving vehicles. We are continue build our LiDAR better and supply for the market. Hopefully, very soon you can saw our LiDAR on the Korean street.
Hi, I'm Boaz. I'm from Israel. And as you probably know, in Israel, there is a renaissance in startups in mobility. And I founded about 7 years ago the Israeli network for mobility startups called EcoMotion. When today in Israel, we have over 500 startups focusing only on automotive and mobility. Part of that, there is a lot of entrance of multinationals to Israel, looking into the Israeli startups and innovation. Just recently, Hyundai announced about 6 months ago that they're going to open an office in Israel, scouting for technologies in Israel in automotive. And today, I'm also the founder of Drive, which is a collaboration platform for the startups and multinationals that are interested to work together. Currently, our partners in Drive are companies like Volvo Group, Honda, Hertz, Aptiv, NEC, and so on. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ludovic. I'm working for Orange, formerly known as France Telecom, so a telecom operator in France, but operating in 30 countries, mainly in Europe and Africa. I'm part of the Orange Fab, which is the startup accelerator of Orange, where we are working with startups to find the new service of tomorrow. And some can be related to connected cars. We have some startups that are working on a subject, and we try to do some open innovation and value the next generation of network that will occur, which is the 5G network. As we had a wonderful presentation about what it could do theoretically, now we have to go in practice what can be done with this network and how to do it, especially to make all this happening. Thank you.
Hi, I'm BJ Kim, the director of Mando Innovation Silicon Valley office. The Mando is a automotive tier 1 suppliers providing chassis components and ADAS solutions to car makers worldwide. And our major product portfolios are focusing on brake system, steering system, suspension system, which are more electrified and automated. And we also provide ADAS solution and ADAS sensors, such as radar sensors and camera sensors, along with the kind of advanced driver assistance system applications like distance control and lane keeping control. And we are out in the Silicon Valley office in order to scouting the new technologies and the startups in the different places. So it's been around, about a year since we opened up our office in Mountain View area in the Silicon Valley. And we have been exploring very talented people and a very innovative mindset in that area. Pretty excited. So
What about me? Very, very talented person.
yeah, that was the one of the part. Just we experienced with you. Yeah, actually, yeah. So I'm excited to be here. To share our thought as a tier 1 supplier for the future mobility system in this panel. Thank you.
So myself, this is Chong. I joined SK September last year. Before that, I worked at Samsung Ventures in Silicon Valley, investing in automotive companies, autonomous driving, electric vehicles. And before that, I worked at Intel as a marketing and strategy guy, and Infineon as well. So I joined SK. I'm driving the SK group level e-mobility strategy. And my homework is to come up with the future mobility strategies for SK. I have no idea. That's the reason I took on this panel. Hopefully, this panelists can give me some answers and insights so that I can go back and fulfill my homework. So let me just start with one question. Recently, right? Autonomous driving. When you talk about it, it has been taking, getting a lot of momentum last few years. Until recently, there were a couple big incidents with the Tesla and Uber. So what's going on with this autonomous driving technology? That's one. Why these things are happening, these incidents are happening? And second question is, what's going to be the impact on this momentum? Is it going to stall the progress of the autonomous driving technology? Or you think it's just a glitch and we're going to see a full autonomous vehicle in the near future? Anybody wants to take on this question? Maybe Byung-joo. You just claimed that you are an expert in autonomous driving, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay, great. I'll start. So people have been talking that one of the reasons why we developed the automated driving system is to reduce the current fatal or just accident rates out there. But if we take a step back and think about it again, wait a minute. What about the perception performance at this moment using the current sensor solutions at this moment? If we just, then people can realize it. The current perception module performance is not yet comparable to the human cognitive ability at this moment. So no matter how smart on your kind of path planning algorithm, decision-making algorithm, or vehicle control algorithm. So the first step, the initial step for automated driving system is interact with the world environment system. World environment is a kind of perception module. So we have to think whether the current sensor solution is quite enough to realize the automated driving system. So in that sense, now people they say more about the kind of sensor fusion and different sensor technology as well. And we also have to just deal with the kind of various of the scenarios by using simulation, more simulation works. And plus, if we also think about the recent fatal accident cases, people now talk more about the driver monitoring systems. So as long as we have a driver or even safety drivers behind the wheel, definitely we need to monitor the driver states, whether driver is focusing on the kind of driving state or not. Depending on that situation, you can just apply a different control concept. If the driver is just distracted or just safety driver is in a distracted situation, you can just, your control action can be jumped in much more faster than kind of normal cases. That's my thought, yeah.
So looks like Wei, he's attacking your sensor. He's saying basically Velodyne LiDAR wasn't good enough. Is that the case?
Thank you very much.
I don't mean that.
Actually, I kind of agree your opinion. For the high-level ADAS and also for the future autonomous driving, powerful sensor is necessary. It's much necessary than the human involved in the driving, right? We can see from the past couple of incidents, the lake sensitivity is major cause the issue. So we believe sensor, especially for the LiDAR sensor, precisely sensing 360 degree around is very necessary for the safety. That's why we enthusiastic promote our technology for the automotive industry. We hope with LiDAR can save more people's life.
I think one accident from Tesla, and they're not using your LiDAR, I think.
Well,
Is that right?
I don't really in the position to criticize about these things, but as long as you mention it, we do agree. Since we look back since the first Tesla accident due in 2016, for the industry already have a common agreement. LiDAR is the only one can provide this, protect that these things happen again and again. So I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just comment? I think the notion of getting more and more sensors, it's right for today. It's right for the hybrid situation, I call it, when you have human drivers and automated drivers. But as soon as we're going to get more and more into the automated world, we're going to need less sensors. So it's right for today when we're going to have you need to have a mixture of people and cars that automated. But I think we're going to see a peak of a need in sensors, but then you're going to see a lower need in sensors in the future. And regarding to your questions about, will it stop? We have millions of miles driving in automated cars and only like a few accidents. Every day, thousands of people dying from humans that making mistakes and killing people, but no one is writing so much about it, and you don't hear about any car accident that happens a lot. So if we can have, I think that's kind of things are not going to stop the progress of the industry. The industry is going to keep going and learn from it and keep developing it. I don't think it's going to stop it.
I just want to clarify, no offense to Tesla. I'm a big believer of Tesla, and I think Tesla, without Tesla and EV is still not at this stage. And also, I'm a very tiny, small shareholder of Tesla, so I believe Tesla. I want to mention another thing is for safety, for autonomous driving, I think I just asked the question to Dr. Ziller, and connectivity also very important. When you have the vehicle-to-infrastructure function, when you have the vehicle-to-vehicle function, then one of the Tesla accident, I think it can be avoided. And if the truck in that accident has the vehicle-to-vehicle function and can talk to Tesla, the passenger, the Model S, I think you can avoid that accident. And also regulation also is another part of this. And to really use autonomous driving technology, I think we need to gradually introduce this technology. And some dedicated area could be the first place you really use the autonomous driving, the full autonomous driving technology. Then we can introduce the full level 4, level 5 to different area on the public street. That's my opinion. Yeah.
So if I were to throw in my 2 cents, my understanding is that in the case of Uber, I mean, theoretically, there should not have been an accident, right? Even if the camera, did not detect the pedestrian, the LiDAR should have detected. So there's some kind of fusion technology issue, in my opinion. In the case of Tesla, my understanding is they are purely based on the camera and radar, not LiDAR, right? So, changing gears, maybe we should talk about some sensors, right? So when you talk about the autonomous driving, there are 2 camps. One camp, like Elon Musk, maybe he's changing his mind lately, is that, hey, we don't need a LiDAR. We just need good camera and good radar. That's good enough for full autonomous vehicle. Another camp, like Google, for example, Daimler, they are saying, no, you need to have a LiDAR, at least in the near future, to ensure there's a redundancy, make sure you are bulletproof in terms of the autonomous driving technology. What camp are you guys on? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I think, like I mentioned before, I think for the near future, I'm in the camp of you need all the sensors. You need camera, you need radar, you need LiDAR, and you need the best ones that you can get in the market, and probably you need even more than just the radar, LiDAR, and camera. There is a lot of other sensors that are relevant for different use cases that we can't predict, and there is a lot of startups developing different solutions, like a SWIR solution, and so on and so on. So I think in the near future, we're going to need all of them. I think Tesla is not really not for LiDAR. I think Elon Musk always talk about it. He's not against LiDAR. He said just LiDAR technology today is very expensive. It's not available for mass production. And if you want to, and their approach always were like, we're pushing the industry forward. And that's, one thing to say about Tesla. They're pushing the industry forward. It's in EV and it's in autonomous driving. They're pushing the industry. And he always saying, if I'm going to have a company that can sell me $200 LiDAR that's going to be good enough in a mass production, I'm going to add it to the cars. We need it to the cars. It's just a matter of scale and a matter of costs.
Yeah, I'm agreeing about that kind of viewpoint. As a tier 1 supplier, we also advocate the multiple sensor solutions, LiDAR, radar, camera, because each sensor has kind of different limitations depending on the conditions, environment conditions, and depending on the scenarios. So for the LiDAR sensor, which is LiDAR sensor is not susceptible to a kind of lighting changing condition. You can even use that sensor in a very dark environment condition as well. But one of the issues people talk about on that part is in the maturity of the perception algorithm we're using the LiDAR sensor. Many people are talking about the AI and the deep learning, especially focusing on the camera side at this moment. But not that much kind of study is going on using the LiDAR information. So I'm not talking about I'm not blaming about the LiDAR, but I just want to just emphasize the possibility and the potential on that area. So many people should just focusing on the perception algorithm on using the LiDAR information as well. In order to do that, LiDAR should be much more kind of denser, and it needs to just provide much more kind of wider field of view, wider range performance, and also very dense line segment as well. So, and on the contrary, on the LiDAR sensor, on the contrary, the camera sensors, in the camera sensor case, it is true that it is susceptible to the light changing conditions. So in that case, so people just blaming about kind of the cases that if the camera faces a kind of glare effect from the sun, then your kind of sensor performance can be degraded. So definitely there must be a kind of compensation between other sensors. So that's our view. So sensor fusion is a kind of key to just realize the kind of future automated kind of driving system, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely LiDAR, I think, one challenge is the cost, right? Really expensive right now. I think the latest one is like $4,000, whatever. It came down significantly from $80,000 a few years ago. So everybody's talking about a way to bring the cost down and make it compact, and some companies are doing solid state LiDARs. So one question is, maybe Velodyne, do you guys have a plan how to bring the cost down? That's number one question. And second question to the whole panel, right? If the LiDAR is critical and is very expensive, then most likely maybe one assumption is it's not gonna come down to the level where you can put it in a passenger cars. But doesn't mean that maybe autonomous driving, because of the LiDAR costs being a barrier, maybe it's gonna start with the shared mobility, for example, or commercial vehicles. Any perspectives?
Well, I think the first question is particular for me. LiDAR, Velodyne LiDAR, is famous on the world as expensive, right? Since this year, early this year, actually January 1st this year, you saw we dropped the price in half. VLP16, that's the most popular for the autonomous driving industry right now. And we are guarantee the world, the industry will continue on this path, cut our price again and again, eventually match the needs, whatever you said, $100 level. For this year, we already finished our email site ASIC design. Now we're working on the receiving side ASIC design. Later, second of this year, after we finish ASIC design, our components can drop from 1,100 to almost 100 pieces. That will dramatically save the cost and also give the possibility for the massive production, for the assembly line massive production, save a lot of human cost, human people's cost. So we are assuming, based on our market research and also based on the OEM forecast for their needs, during 2020, the LiDAR price for the rotated, for the mobility car sharing purpose, collected as much possible data parts. So it's 120 channel above, going to be within $1,000. And for the passenger cars, that's our Velodyne, solid state Velodyne LiDAR. The channel from 32 down to maybe 4 channels for the passenger uses. That price going to be less than $500. 8-channel LiDAR for the purpose ADAS use around the vehicle going to be $100 level. So that's our goal and our roadmap on those things. And our Velodyne LiDAR, solid state LiDAR, going to announce, provide the engineer sample to our OEM partner during the second half of this year. So after those things on the market, we gave the market confidence how we can keep the performance, but also drop the cost.
Okay. So what about the, which sector of the new mobility autonomous vehicle will actually start? You don't have to talk, but if you want, you can talk.
Okay. Well, maybe I can say something about the car sharing. I started to get involved in car sharing in 2011. And there's a very famous car sharing project, actually from Paris, and called Autolib. And before, I think called Blue Car. And they have 3,000 electric vehicles on the street in Paris. And I visited their headquarters, and the founder told me they have lots of problems they need to solve for that car sharing project. And one of the key issue is in the morning, all the car and the user drive the car towards the city in the center because they drive to work. And in the afternoon, all the driver drive car back to the countryside. Yeah. And so they need to put lots of drivers and to drive the car back from the city center to all the place. Then they can really serve the car sharing business. So if we can use the LiDAR system and also the sensor system and to improve this and make autonomous driving technology in those car sharing projects, I think they can save lots of money And for this kind of car sharing project, maybe they're not so sensitive on the cost of the sensor or LiDAR, and they can use this technology and maybe the most advanced technology to really implement the car sharing, the autonomous driving technology, then help them to reduce the cost to moving cars around. And they can use this to just move the car by the autonomous driving technology. That can save cost, I think, yeah.
So we're working also with commercials, so not only car sharing, trucks and buses. And over there, a third of the costs of the car itself, of the truck itself, is the driver. And that's a huge cost. It's not just about the cost of running it, like paying the driver, but also the way he drives. So it's the fuel, wheels, mechanics problems, and so on and so on. And over there is no problem of costs. So if you can, the cost of the sensor are not an issue. It's only an issue of how you implement it into the car. And I think there is another approach, not just running the cost of the LiDAR lower and the sensor lower, but also we talked about it earlier, to have some kind of sensor fusion. Using the sensor in a smarter way, when you can have, for example, there is one startup that's using vision, and basically what it says, you don't need to have to shoot these millions beams of LiDAR everywhere. You just need to shoot them on a specific places when you have some kind of misunderstanding what's happening there, or suspecting something is happening there and you want to check it in a much better way. Using the existing resources in a better way, in a smarter way, can lower the cost of the existing sensors by using sensor fusion. So I think there is other ways of reducing the costs.
Okay. Oh, well, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, if I add more, I have a similar idea with the kind of sharing service. Sharing service can boost up the kind of automotive technology here, because if you just deploy that sharing service in a designated area, confined area, then you can just the ruling out the kind of, you can increase the level of kind of reliability of the system. As many as you test as many as possible, then you can just ruling out the kind of corner cases more and more. So that's the kind of point that you can deploy your automated driving system much faster than other cases. If I add one more, there are kind of the last mile delivery or delivery service is also another case. Pretty much similar to the sharing service as well. If we think about the automated driving system from A to B, in this case, delivery service, always A point is kind of designated place, which is a kind of garage or just the cargo space, that the place that you can just ship the goods. So in that case, you can just make the problem much simpler and simpler. Then you can just realize the automated driving much faster.
Hey, maybe before we move to another topic, maybe we can talk about the 5G-based autonomous driving. And one is, it's very capital intensive, right? Putting together this 5G infrastructure. And also, autonomous driving is a great idea. It's going to generate a ton of data, right? So what is the plan to manage all the data? And also, it's because infrastructure is expensive, you got to find a way to make money out of it. So what is the plan?
Thank you. Well, in this debate, I feel surrounded by really expert and professional. We are, as a telco, a bit far from all these tech issues for autonomous driving. But what we are for sure is very focused on getting 5G network deployment. And this for many reasons, because we'd like to keep up with technology and give the best to our customer. We know also that this very promising technology is an enabler for many services to come. And autonomous car is one of it, as we saw in the previous presentation as well. But as everybody in the industry, we can see in the autonomous driving that they are facing a lot of challenges. We, as an operator, are facing our own challenges with the technology as well. And there is many of it, actually, that today we don't know how to solve them. But I think we are more in a process of learning by walking, okay? And it will be like that. You will not see in the next few months fully autonomous car running in the street of this city. That's for sure. What we saw is we are toward a path of improvement, and it will be step by step more and more autonomous until we will feel ready. The infrastructure, the captors, the car, everything, the society will be ready to really jump into an autonomous car. For us, we have the feeling that we are following the same path. Today we are working in labs with car manufacturers trying to validate the part of the technology, the 5G and the connectivity part of the technology. And in labs, yeah, it works quite well. But our challenge is not to operate labs, it's really to operate a service at the scale of a country. And to deploy a network that will be capable to handle 100 times more capacity in terms of data transmission. And so we saw again this morning that we had the technology, but it's good to have it on paper and theoretically. I mean, it's a bit more than that, but then to really understand how to deploy a network to make it work for not 90% of the case. We need to be efficient in this case because it will be life-threatening. It's 90.99999% of the case everywhere in the territory. It's a big challenge. Just to finish, to meet this challenge, you have to understand that the level of investment, and it's really the problematic of the operator. An operator is what? He has a Lego, this nice technology, and we have to build a full network, and we have customer. This Lego will be an enabler for new usage, new way of new service, and then this service will find their market, we hope. So the idea is, as we are facing a very high level of investment to come to lay down this network, then on the other hand, we need to have new technology, new services, new applications like connected car to really pay off the investment of this infrastructure. And then there is a true question in connected car. Every day when you drive your car, you have to put fuel, or you have to recharge it by electricity, with electricity. Tomorrow you will have another fuel that you will have to pay for it, and will partly pay for this whole infrastructure is the data connection that will be very demanding for networks, and the amount of the payment you will have to make every month to get this connection for every car will not be negligible. I mean, it will not be a few dollars a day. It will be, I think, a bit more. And then that's really that may change the global economy also of the connected car to come. So I don't say it's a problem. I just say it's really part of a very difficult, not difficult, but complex equation with many parameters, from technical to society. I mean, in terms of like what you're going to do with all these drivers that you're going to lay off. Yeah. So, and you have a whole range of problems to solve for society, and this is, you know.
It sounds like 5G autonomous driving is going to take some time because it's a, you know, very critical potential issue if there's a casualty, right? Okay, I get it. Hey, let's change the topics to electric vehicle. Okay, so one question is, there are many like EV startups, like in China. How many? 200? I don't know. I heard something. And
something like that.
Yeah, And one question, let's just talk about actually China EV. One question is, there are, let's say, assume there are 200 EV startups in China. Are they going to survive, all of them, right? That's one question. And another question, why EV is so, there's a big progress and proliferation of EV in China. I mean, is it purely because of the government policy or something else?
Maybe I take the lead to answer this question, and because you ask about China market. I believe 80% of them will fail, that's for sure. But I think this industry now is the time to change. And auto industry has been there for 100 years. And there's no major change in this industry. And just keep upgrade and keep improving. And I think electric vehicle is the breakthrough point. And again, I think Tesla really, I think Elon is a hero, and he educated the customer and the potential driver. EV is the future, and EV is the car you can drive actually for daily work. And before Tesla, I think no one really made that success. For EV, why China is so hot on this EV topic? I think one reason is because the pollution and also the traffic in the big city. I think pollution and the traffic in the big city is not only in China. I live in LA now, in California. Even in LA and in the downtown area, you can see pollution. And it's still too many cars there, and EV could be one solution. And the other thing is, I think everyone talk about the future transportation system. I think Ford announced they will become a mobility service company in the future. What's the meaning of a mobility service? And before, automaker, they are making money on selling vehicles. I deeply believe in the future, automaker will not only making money on selling the vehicle, but they will make more money on after they sell the vehicles. And what's the meaning of that? I think we talk about big data. And when you sit in the car, and the user experience is very important. And you can convert the whole vehicle into office, into a living room. You can watch a movie, and you can do lots of things. But without electric vehicle, I don't believe this will happen, because electric vehicle will simplify the whole transportation system, the powertrain system, and make an instant reaction from the vehicle. And that's really can bring all the technology into the vehicle, and including the autonomous driving. And I don't believe gasoline vehicle will have a future, that's for sure. But electric vehicle will really give us the opportunity to integrate autonomous driving technology and the next generation of infotainment system into the vehicle. I think because of that, the EV is so popular at this moment. And also, there's another reason, one last point. I believe with EV technology, the car will become a commodity. And with EV technology, you can really make a common platform with modularity for the car. And that means you can see the traditional gasoline vehicle. If you talk about the power, you need a four-cylinder gasoline engine, you need a 6-cylinder, or you need to even talk about 12 cylinders. And then you can get a different power. But for electric vehicle, I think you can use just one simple small motor, and for small vehicle, and with the modularity, you can use 2 motor or 3 motor for different size of the car, but you don't need to develop another motor. So I think EV will really disrupt the whole industry and bring more technology into the vehicle industry.
So then let me ask the panel another question then. So going from a combustion engine to EV, the car becomes very simple, right? And you are saying EV is going to become a commodity as well. Does it mean OEMs are in trouble?
Not all of them. I think you can see there's a big change in the industry. but some of the OEM, they're really catch up very soon. And one of the good example, I think Daimler is really changing very soon. And car industry is a little bit different compared to mobile phone. And when Apple disrupt the whole industry and become number one, because mobile phone relatively easy compared to car. And car is the very complicated system and also related to safety. So I believe many of the current OEM, if they see the change and if they can catch up the train, they make the change, they will survive. But I also believe there's a newcomer can survive as well. I deeply believe Tesla will survive and become very successful. Not only because I'm the shareholder.
Oh, that's the question I was going to ask you. Okay.
I think from the short past couple of years, from our vision, the LiDAR vision, we can see this very clearly. A lot of EV cars during the 2016, they tried to use the mobile phone model to take over OEM, domestic automotive industry. But for the whole 2016 and 2017, a lot of the EV cars realized, build a car, even an electric vehicle, not simply as a cell phone. Traditional OEM has a lot of technology, know how to handle the complicated safety issue about the cars. Nothing could happen like Nokia or BlackBerry phone, suddenly crash. Nothing happened that. And more the traditional OEM like GM, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, even Hyundai here, Toyota, Honda in Japan, they are approach us for the autonomous developing. All of those applications based on the EV car. So they start and they're dramatically catch up very quickly. So I don't think the OEM are going to be dangerous, but like Tony said, if they move on, if they catch up, they have still opportunities.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I'm talking about it a lot. I think there is two changes that are happening today in the car industry, which we see them. We talked a lot about, when we talked a lot about the technology side of changes. And if we're, compare it to Nokia and the smartphones, there was two changes that happened at the same time. There is the technology change when we moved from the dumb phones we call today to the smartphones. But the second change that was, I think, more critical and more frightening and is a risk on the OEMs. It's not the technology risk, because technology can always overcome. If it's electric, if it's autonomous, it's much easier to overcome technology. It's much harder to overcome changes in the business model. And in the smartphones, it was the fact that we had applications. It was the service providers sold application, and suddenly there was like a free application. Everybody can develop application on an open platform. I think this is what's happening also in the automotive, and we spoke about it a little bit about the shared economy, the ownership of the cars. Who's going to be the owners of the car? If it's going to be the private person, the existing models that we have today when we're buying a car and using it, or it's going to be fleets of that owned by the OEMs. When you see the Germans who's running different services, we just saw that Daimler and BMW competitors that developing together a solution for car sharing solution in Germany when they took Car2Go and BMW now together. And we see it in GM with Maven, and you see also the other solutions like Lyft and Uber and OEMs that collaborating with them. And I think those areas of the changes in the business models are more frightening, and the OEMs should be more scared about them changing their model rather than the technology's changes.
Okay, so sounds like a new EV entrant like Tesla may be underestimating what it requires to build robust cars, right? They are going through some hiccups right now because they are lacking the know-how and experience. At the same time, maybe OEMs, they are maybe a little bit panicking with these new mobility guys coming into the market with the shared mobility business models. And OEMs are trying to do shared mobility businesses, right? And are they underestimating the new business models, right? They are trying to be shared mobility guys, but traditionally they are just hardware, software, car manufacturers. Are they underestimating this shared mobility new business models? I guess another way to ask these questions is OEMs will eventually be successful running the new shared mobility business models.
Just 1 minute. Well, actually, as a telco industry, we went through many revolutions in the last 20 years. The engine and the fuel of this revolution is the dream and over-promising everything you can have on the table. That really is a big driver of progress. I remember that. I don't know when we were in 2000, when the first high-speed network will start to emerge for a large public. We were sitting around the table wondering what can be given as a service to people on this high-speed network, and the level of ideas we had at the time was very poor. We solved this issue just by opening the technology to other people that were jumping on it and creating things very useful for people. And then we have all this bunch of services that you get on your phone or on your computer. This cannot be think in a really top-down corporate way. This has to be really developed in an open way and in an ecosystemic way. And that's the trend that industries that should take to really we don't know everything today, but we have many challenges to face. We have to face it one by one, step by step, and find our way and build our journey around this.
Okay. So, as a tier one perspective of view, I don't think just conventional OEMs underestimate the new players, such as shared companies or IT companies out there. If you look at the list of investment or acquisition or partnership along with the car OEMs, they are very aggressive to cooperate with them. For example, if you look at Ford, they invest huge money onto the Argo.ai, the automation company, and also acquiring the shared mobility service company Chariot. At the same time, the GM also, has a kind of pretty much a similar configuration. Cruise automation is their automation solution, and they are just partnership with the Lyft shared mobility company. Even Hyundai Kia Motors have a partnership with the Aurora Innovations, which is an automated driving solution as well. So I think they are very aggressive in terms of approaching to the new technology. Somehow we are, in kind of tier one suppliers are in between. So we are kind of cautious to look at their kind of progress in order to just jump into a certain point to make a kind of the production level projects.
Okay. Actually, my very specific question I have is, should OEMs get into shared mobility business? Actually, that's one question I have. If you guys have any perspective, you guys can share. If not, then we can move on to another question.
I think in US, leasing program is very popular. And now you can see OEM try to introduce another business model called a membership. So when you do leasing, you still need to take care of the service and the insurance. But if you do membership, that means you pay monthly fee, just like you pay a mobile phone. And you don't need to care about the insurance, service, anything. You just pay maybe $500 per month, then you can have a car. And you can change the car anytime you want. I think in the big city, that may work. And that could be the one business model, and the OEM or maybe newcomer will try. But I believe 4 things can really disrupt this industry, the auto industry. One is the electrification of the powertrain, which is electric vehicle. And the second is the new creative user experience in the car. And I think you all have experience about navigation system in the car. Even the high-end car, I think you need to type in all the address and very slowly, very complicated, and the user experience, it sucks. So I think the user experience in the future will be totally different. And if you drive Tesla, I drove Tesla for 2 years. I think Tesla, one of the successful reason is the big screen in the middle. That's really creative. That's not enough. I think more and more new ideas about user experience will come to the vehicle. And that's the second part. The third part is autonomous driving. With autonomous driving technology, the whole industry will really be disrupted. And the last one is the new business model, which is the sharing business model. I think a sharing business model is really the key as well, and especially in the big city. And we did a lot of survey in San Francisco and also New York. And many young generation, they said, I don't want to own a car. I don't want to have a car because the parking fee is very high and I don't have place to park. And I just want to have the mobility service when I need it. And I can call Uber, I can use car sharing. I think that's the future, definitely, but depends on where. And so 4 things. If OEMs only focus on car sharing, that's not enough. That's my comment, I think, yeah.
Okay.
For the other hand, think about the financial side. OEM has much better position than the new start company. So for them, as long as they realize mobility car sharing, those kind of business models are necessary, they jump in very quick and they move very quick. That's what we saw for the past 2 years.
Okay. So I think it's due. I think we are ready to accept some questions.
Just a remark maybe on what you say. There is a very nice parallel I can do about the launch of 3G network at the time. When we launched this network, we had no much services running on this type of bandwidth, and the growth was very flat until the iPhone came. And it was a change in paradigm of interface. And then the user really loved it, jumped on it, and then the growth was impressive, and we doubled since the first iPhone was launched. We doubled the volume of data we are carrying in our network since then. So it's a very exponential growth, and it's something very impressive. I think it will be the same for car, as long as you develop the right. Something really adapt to people, then it will change the interface between human and machine is very important for the technology to take off.
Thank you. Yeah, so, any questions, raise your hand.
질의응답은 영어 또는 한국어로 진행되며 손을 드시면 저희가 마이크를 전달드리도록 하겠습니다.
Sounds like there will be big changes in automobile industry going forward, and yes, EV will be more common, and the cars will be equipped with many sensors, and cars can be driven without drivers, and the cars can be connected without latency, and car can be easily shared. I'm wondering if that kind of technical changes, technical innovation could impact the landscape of mobile industry. So, for instance, do I have to buy a car? Do I have to own a car? The biggest OEM in Korea, they are selling like 7 to 8 million annually. They can maintain that kind of production level. Do you have any insight about the future landscape of automobile industry?
Anybody wants to take on that question? It's a tough question, so maybe I don't want to answer that.
Okay, for the future, the car capacity in in the society. We believe the mobility car sharing model will be popular. So the share mobility model car will be much more than currently. For the passenger car, a lot of people, especially for the young people, still like to own the fashion car. So that's going to be maintained. But for the daily commute business, own the car, we don't think going to be continue. Overall, for the amount of the car in the market should be no big change, but functioning for the car purpose will be dramatically changed.
I think from our conversations with a lot of players around it, we see that we're assuming that there are going to be less sales of cars, but the fleet is going to be much younger. That means they're going to be, if today the average age of a fleet about 10 to 15 years, you're going to see fleets that the age is going to be 2 to 3 years. They're going to be, the usage of the car is going to be much higher. So you're not necessarily going to sell more cars, but you're going to sell more parts, and the usage of the car is going to be much higher. You're going to see more mileage on the cars that are going to be on the roads.
So I forgot the exact numbers, but my understanding is that if you look at the overall trend, number of cars produced, I think next like 15 years, maybe 2 to 3% CAGR. And if you look at the details of the CAGR, in mature companies, actually number of cars purchased are going down. Just like millionaires, they don't want to buy cars, right? Because car is not the same as what it used to be. In the past, car was a representation of your wealth, your status. I mean, there's a personal association, emotional attachment to the car. But if you talk to the young kids, there are so many other things they can, be entertained with, right? So car is no longer the same emotional attachment. And young generations, my understanding, they are much more practical. They think about return on investment. And there are many other options now, even more going forward with the shared mobility, many other options than owning a car, right? So they can get to point A to point B through different options. That's one. So, but overall growth, as I said, I believe it's about 2 to 3%. One reason is because in the developing countries, they still need cars. So there's a growth in the developing countries, but in mature companies, actually the number of cars actually going down. That's my understanding. And I think it's reflected because of all these new options with the shared mobilities.
I think every year the OEMs globally, they can sell 80 million new cars. Of course, this will now be changed very soon. It will take time to reduce the number. Also, for the ownership change, like a car sharing business model, I don't believe it's good for everywhere. And I think it's good for maybe big city or some area. But for example, for LA, I think it's really widespread out. So if you live in the small town, and you need a car, and it's difficult to get an Uber or other car sharing things. So I think it depends on where you live. If you live in San Francisco, Beijing, Shanghai, or Seoul, I think it's good to maybe share the car with others. At least you don't need to buy 2 cars for your family. Yeah.
Due to time limitation, we'll only take one last question from the floor.
네, 좋은 의견 들려주셔서 고맙습니다. 지금 그 자율주행에 관련돼서 조금 2가지를 여쭙고 싶은데요. 보이기에 지금 ICT 컴퍼니하고 전통적인 OEM 회사들이 조금 경쟁하는 듯한 느낌이 좀 보여지고 있는데, 향후 5년이나 10년 이후에 어떤 그 필드에 있는 기업들이 자율주행에 대해서 더 경쟁력을 가질까라고 하는 그 예상을 좀 하시는지가 첫 번째 퀘스천이고, 두 번째 자율주행에 관련된 그 기업들이 명확하게 자율주행을 가지고 하려고 하는 비즈니스 모델이 조금은 없다라고 하는 것들도 얘기가 좀 있어 보입니다. 카쉐어링이나 뭐 이런 것들은 아까 말씀을 하셨는데 그 느낌상으로는 지금 뭔가를 하지 않으면 2, 3년 후에 아니면 5년 후에 뭔가 할 수 없을 것 같은 본인들의 사업 기회를 좀 놓칠 것 같다라는 것 때문에 지금 투자를 하고 자율주행에 대한 어떤 여러 가지 그 연구를 하는 것 같이 보여지는데 그것이 조금 맞은 것인지 아니면 그런 비즈니스 모델이 있는데 조금 컨피덴셜하기 때문에 많이 이렇게 숨기고 있는 상황인지 이것에 대해서 조금 설명 주시면 고맙겠습니다.
Understood the question. Maybe BJ, maybe you are the
Yeah,
right guy to answer this.
I think there are two questions. The first question was, I mean, who's gonna play a major role in the automotive industry after 10 years? Is that so? So, I mean, the IT companies or just traditional OEMs or EV car companies. I mean, who's gonna take the lead on this kind of the future mobility system? That's the one question. I mean, if I address that one first. It's hard to imagine, I mean, in this kind of very fast-moving technological era at this moment. But still, in terms of the technical point of view, we still see that the car OEMs and the EV car companies have a lot of experience on just providing the solutions, the mobility solutions based on the kind of their existing technologies. So that's my view. I mean, still they create the innovations inside and bring new technologies onto their cars. I mean, eventually they still play a kind of major role even in 10 years and 20 years. I mean, I'm not sure about the 20 years though, but at least 10 years, I mean, they still play a kind of significant role, I think. And maybe I'll just transfer to the second question to others.
Maybe I want to make one comment on the first question. Who's going to be the winners? Basically, there are traditional OEMs and there are new entrants, right? It could be Drive.ai. When it comes to autonomous driving, Drive.ai, Autonomy, Phantom AI, there are a bunch of companies in Silicon Valley. The way I look at this problem question is this. You know, let's say NVIDIA, Intel, they have a ton of money, ton of resources, but why some of the startups beat them, right? That's a fundamental question. Why smaller guys beat the big guys? I think there are a few reasons. One is the DNA, right? Startup companies, they are in a survival mode, okay? Every day, they are working their butt off to make sure there's another day tomorrow, okay? So the DNA is different. Used to work at Intel and Samsung. Everything is moving a lot slowly, and that's one. Second thing is, especially my understanding is OEMs are very conservative, right? Very, very conservative, because adopting new technology is a huge decision, because somebody may, be in trouble. But startups, look at Tesla. They are taking chances, okay? So if I were to summarize my point, I think there will be winners, both sides, OEMs and the new entrants, when it comes to autonomous driving, because one is developing the autonomous driving technology itself. Maybe startup companies have advantage, but at the end of the day, it's going to be installed in the actual car. And who makes the better car and robust car? It's the OEMs. I think there has to be some kind of competition and cooperation, and that's exactly what's happening in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that I totally agree. I think it's also connected to what you asked about what kind of characters those companies need to have, and I think for the winners, and I think it's also connected to your second question. I think about the business model. I think the winners should be agile and to understand that you don't have all the answers. You have to be a company that's running first, and you have to be open for new business model, for new solutions. Google at the beginning and Facebook didn't have any business model. They just knew they need to have a lot of traction. They knew that something is changing in the internet, and they need to create traction, and they need to understand people and to give them good services, and the money would come. And that's, I think, exactly the same thing with autonomous driving.
Yeah, second question, in terms of the business model, at this moment currently, it's hard to imagine what the business model with the automated driving system. But if we think about the data inside of the vehicle, there are huge competition between IT companies and the OEM. I mean, those guys are just try to just to possess their kind of the data inside of the vehicle and kind of all the clouds data related to the kind of automotive, the car data actually. So you can see that, I mean, the company who takes this kind of data, I mean, just creating a value from this data can just take the major role in the kind of later era. So just, I mean, possessing the data and just transferring data is not kind of creating a value. Just you need to make some kind of value on top of the data. I mean, some people called it as a kind of curation of the data is a kind of key performance on the future player, I think.
And I want to add one thing for the first question. I think those two questions are very good. For the first question, I deeply believe who can move very fast and who can provide the best new creative user experience, they will become very successful. So that's my comment about first question. And second one, I think I'm not expert on the LiDAR or the autonomous driving, but I think some dedicated area, I think we can use autonomous driving first, and that can create a revenue and can create a good business model, and including commercial vehicle like truck, or maybe some dedicated area like a tourist area for sightseeing, and you can use the autonomous driving vehicle only for that area, and that could work. Yeah.
Maybe I can say something. We can say that small disruptive startups that will succeed will become EOMs themselves one day. The idea behind that is to say what's important between startups and EOM is really to see how we can open bridges and work together in order to help this startup and this innovative technology to get access to market most quickly possible. And then to allow also the EOM to really transform themselves in the more flexible and agile corporation to catch up with the speed of the market that we are facing today.
Thank you, panelists. We'll wrap up the first panel discussion now. Thank you for your interesting and insightful knowledge on the issue. Please give them another big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.